Yes, mathematical literacy, we have what we call patterns and relationships. Patterns and relationships, they will cause, or you will need to know these terms. These will be asked in some questions, and there will be answers somewhere. All right, these are the terminologies that you have to remember. All right, these are the terminologies that you have to remember. One, discrete variable. What are discrete variables? These are variables that are counted or they are countable. They will always be in whole numbers. They will never be in halves. Example, number of human beings. Then we have, yeah, you can also look at any number of, let's say, computers, number of shoes, you know, number of animals, anything that will never be in halves. They become discrete variables. These are all numbers. These are all numbers. Then when you look at continuous variables, these are measured, and the numbers can be in whole numbers. They can be fractions or decimals. For example, the height of a person. Then we can have the weight, their weight. We can have temperature. We can have volume, you know, values that are in all this line. They become continuous. Why? They can either be expressed as whole numbers, fractions, or decimals. Now, we have what we call independent variables. Independent variables. These ones, independent variables, are the values that we shall use to determine the next value. We shall see it as we go on. These are values we use to determine for example, if they tell you for every liter, for every liter, one has to pay 2 rands. That means the money to be paid will depend on the number of, what? Liters. So the number of liters becomes independent and the cost becomes dependent. Why? The cost will depend on the number of liters. Okay, now these ones, as you plot the graph, we shall always put them on the x-axis, which is the horizontal line. Then the dependent, the ones that depend on whatever is given to them. For example, the cost in this scenario of ours, it will always be on the y-axis, which is the vertical axis. All right. You should remember that when you're drawing a graph. So the graph will be like this. So which is down here, this will be independent. And the one that goes up here, it's dependent. So for easy remembering, you can say X, Y, I, D. So the independent is always on the x-axis, and the dependent is on the y-axis. Okay, that's how it's easy to remember that. Then we go to what we call direct proportion. These ones will also be asked in questions, especially they like asking what kind of relationship is displayed in the graph above or in the table above. Please, should both variables increase or decrease at the same value, that becomes direct. And the nature of by the way, the nature of graphs here are straight lines and curves. The curve will be for indirectly the inverse proportion. Inverse proportion, one of the quantities increases as the other decreases. So here we are saying, for you to remember what happens in the direct, we have to know, say here you say the same. Here you write and you say opposite. To be opposite. Okay. Maximum values and minimum values. This will help you when you're plotting the graph to get a clean, perfect graph. All right, maximum value, zero values, these are the critical. Why are they critical? We are using them to draw our graph. Okay, let's go on and we see the examples that we have here. Number one, Nikki started a cleaning service company. Because she is new in the business, she has to hire a cleaning machine to run her business. It costs her 50 rands per hour to hire a cleaning machine. Use the table below to help you answer the questions that follow. First and foremost, understand that now they are telling us for every 1 hour, you pay 50 rand. That means if you're looking for the total cost, you'll get 50 rand times the number of what? Number of hours. And this kind of part of it, this becomes the equation. So for Nikki to get or to determine the total cost, she will always use this equation. So they're telling us use the table up below to calculate the missing values of A. Now they have told us if it's 1, it's 50. What about A? So A is going to be 50 times 4, which equals to 200. Why am I multiplying by 4? Because the 50 is 4 per hour. How many hours have we used? We've used 4. So that's why we multiply by 4. So A is 200 rands. Then let's go to B. B. Still, B will be 50 times 5, which becomes 250. These are rands. And now, value of C. Value of C we need to look for because it's 50 times C, giving 500. So what number was multiplied by 50 to give you 500? We divide through by 50. We divide through by 50. So we find out that C is 10. So that's how we get the values. Please, you always show the working. Always show the working. Okay, we look at another question there. Let's see. Nikki started cleaning service company. Okay, we are doing the same. So we've seen out that now this is 200. We said this is 250. And this C is 10. They're asking us, identify the independent variable from the above. Independent, what does it mean? The value we need to determine the other. For example here, we need time and the cost. So the cost will depend, or the cost will depend on the number of what? Hours. Yet hours, they don't depend on anything, all right? So the independent variable, we shall say number of hours. Others would call it what? Time. It's fine. Number of hours becomes independent. It's not depending on anything. All right. Because the cost in rands, it has to depend on the number of hours. For each hour, then you produce. All right. So here is, they're asking us, is the data represented above, is it increasing or decreasing? Let's look at time only. Time went from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4. It is going on. It's increasing. All right. Then from 0, we are looking at the cost from 0 to 50, 50 to 100, 100 to 150, from 150 to 200, from 250 to 500. Now, also it's what? Increasing. Now they're asking, is the data represented in the table above increasing or decreasing? We shall say it's what? It's increasing. Now, this is what I was trying to say. What kind of relationship is here? This is a direct what? Proportion. This is a direct proportion. Why? Both of them are increasing. Both of them are increasing. Both of them are increasing. They are facing the same direction. So they are the same. So it's direct what? Proportion. Let's look at the other question. What does it say? How much will it cost Nikki to use the cleaning machine for 7 hours? We come back down and we say, remember they told us 50 Rand per hour. Now we have 7 hours, which will be 350. We shall use the patterns and relationships to determine which option will be better for us as we go on. How many hours will she get to use the cleaning machine if she spends 1,200, which is 1,200? All we are going to do, we shall divide this by 50. So 1,200 divided by 50, this will be 24 hours. This will be 24 hours. Yes, the other part, that how do we analyze this? Another way you would do this, you say for only 1 hour, I pay 50 Rand. Now, I have 1,200. How many hours will I use? I don't know. What do we do? Cross multiply. So this becomes 50 box equals to 1,200. Divide through by 50, divide through by 50. So my missing hours are 24. Okay, we look at the other part, which says, another example is here. Luke created a couple to get to work. He travels with his 4 colleagues and they split his monthly petrol cost of 1,200 between the 5 passengers. That means maximum is supposed to be 5 passengers. So derive a formula that can be used to determine the petrol cost. Now, petrol cost should cost the same, but if it's only one person who pays 1.2, then if they are more, so simply mean the formula is going to be 1,200 divided by the number of what? Passengers. Divided by the number of what? Passengers. This is the formula. Together. So the value of A will equal to 1,200 divided by 2, which becomes what? 600. Then the value of B, same story, divided by 4, it becomes 300. All right. When you look at this graph here, you see from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. Whereas from 1.2 to 600 to 400 to 300 to 40. This one here is reducing, whereas the number of people are increasing. What kind of relationship is here? We shall say it's indirect. It's indirect. Okay. Use the formula to derive and calculate the missing values. We have already seen that. A, we've used it there. B, unfortunately, there's no C, and this marks our first part of patterns and relationships. From here, we shall go and we see. You have to know that patterns and relationships. What you have to know, the scenario, they always ask you to create what we call an equation. Number 2, you need to complete. There will be always a table there. Now it's from this table that we shall have what? Graphs. Please, the graphs are either straight line, which is direct. We have straight line, or a curve, which is indirect. Please, those are the two kind of graphs that we expect when we look at patterns and relationships. Ciao.